I'm also just saying, I'm not a mechanic. If I can do this, any of you guys can. Alright, what's going on, guys? So today we are going to be changing the radiator on my 2006 Toyota Camry with the 2.4 liter engine. And as you can see here, we have the replacement radiator, and you will also need 2 gallons of coolant because the factory size radiator takes about 6.5 quarts of coolant. And so we got 8 here, but since this is a towing radiator, they just make a towing radiator. I think it's designed for more so hot summers in like Florida and so. It may take a little bit more coolant, but I'll lead you guys through the process. I'll show you exactly what's going on with my radiator, as it is kind of a common failure from what I've seen on the forums. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, you obviously just want to lock the car and get the hood open. Alright, so if you've never opened up the hood latch on these Camrys, it's just right under the center. You just basically push it off to the side. Opens right up. So let's look at what's exactly going on with mine. So as you can see here, there is kind of like coolant all over here, kind of down there. And so that is a coolant right there, as you can see. And it is leaking up here on the top. Here, let me focus that. So right up here, it is basically just dripping all the way down. You can see right here on the radiator fan, on the housing, it is actually soaked in coolant. And so this actually happened when I was driving home from Atlanta, and obviously couldn't do too much about it on the road, but I made it back. It has been causing my power steering pump to squeak a little bit. Alright guys, I'm actually going to pause the video right there because that sound I was hearing was actually my alternator and not my power steering pump. So basically what happened was my battery light came on, and so when it turns on, you have about 10-15 miles before your car basically completely dies because your alternator will not be charging your battery. It's some sort of like safety thing in the car where once the battery light comes on, your alternator basically is disconnected sort of. So I pulled into AutoZone parking lot because they'll test your alternator for free. Borrowed a couple tools from them, yanked it out, and basically the bearings and the stator were fried, and just by looking at the alternator you could tell it was pretty dead. There was also coolant kind of all over it, as you could see in the video. So I got a new one from them, went ahead and put it in the parking lot, and it worked flawlessly. And since then I've put about 5,000 to 7,000 miles on the car, I believe, and it's just great. So if you do hear that sound when you do have a coolant leak, odds are it's probably your alternator, just since it's so close to the radiator. And if you see coolant on top of the alternator, just know its life is probably a lot shorter than you think. So just keep that in mind when you go about this entire project. With that being said, let's get back to the video. Alright guys, this is just to kind of clarify what is what on the radiator. So this is very top. So you have the upper radiator hose, and then this is the coolant cap. Down here, this is the lower hose, and then these right here are the trans cooler lines. That's exactly where they hook up to, and then that is your drain plug. Alright guys, so first things first, we're just going to start draining. And so the drain plug location is right there. So it's easy to reach on the bottom. I don't have the under shroud that a lot of these cars have, but so it's going to be right there, that little white thing sticking up. You just twist it and coolant will start flowing out of it. Get your bucket, just put it under there. I can't really show twisting the knob from this angle, but you'll hear the coolant flow out. Also, just make sure the car's cold. Do not do this with hot coolant because you will really hurt yourself. Alright, so before you do that though, just unplug your overflow tank so that way that doesn't drain into the system. Alright, so I just unplugged it, and I just tucked mine up here just so that way it's kind of out of the way, and also so nothing flows out of it since there is coolant actually in my overflow tank. So next step, just drain the coolant. And so once you hear it draining, you can go ahead and open up your top cap just to let pressure in the system so it'll drain faster. Alright, so while that's draining, we can go ahead and move this back. Instead of taking it off, you can bungee cord it back so that way it's out of the way. You just have two 10mm bolts and it's off. your bungee cord and basically just kind of pull it back enough so it's out of the way. Alright, from there we could also undo our upper radiator hose. So one thing I will note is, depending on kind of the condition of your vehicle, these clips might be extremely hard to remove, and what you can do is you can get a new set that actually have a sort of screw tightening system instead of the whole locking system that comes on these cars where you basically need the specific tool to do it. You can get away with doing it with that tool that I was using, but there are easier ways to do it, and so really depends on if they're rusted out. The bottom ones tend to be a lot more rusty just because they're closer to the ground, and if you live in an area where you have road salt and brine and all that, they will get rusty. I do specifically remember the trans cooler line clips were pretty rusty, as well as, actually I think those were just the worst. Alright, so next unplug your two connections over here. One is gray and one is black to your radiator fans. Alright, next you want to undo the two bolts holding in the radiator fans, which are up top, and they're 10 millimeters as well. One is right here and one is over there. I meant 3 bolts. There's one in the center too. Alright. There she is. Alright guys, so I've made a lot of progress. I did not film everything because it was physically impossible to. As you can see, the radiator is now out. Transmission lines were disconnected, radiator hoses were disconnected. Then I undid these bolts here. So there's 4 bolts here, just to lift this up to give it enough room to come out. And as you can see over here, this is the new radiator and this is the old radiator. So all we have to do is transfer this hose over, and then we could go ahead and put everything back in exactly how we took it out, turn on the heat, and allow the coolant to go through the heater core and start putting coolant in the system. All right, let's...
It's a great photo.
Is it now?
I mean, it looks alright, I guess.
I mean, it was taken by a professional.
Yeah, dude, the guy who knows how to record things when it matters most. And yes, I'm talking about clowns.
Alright. Woo! That is it. Alright, so now we are going to do everything in reverse. I'm also just saying, I'm not a mechanic. If I can do this, any of you guys can. But yeah, let's do everything in reverse. Yeah, that'll be fine. Radiator hose is in over here. All these bolts are in. Now we gotta slide the fans in. Sorry. Alright guys, so trans cooler lines are in, lower radiator hose. Now we just have this harness, top hose. You put this all back into place and we should be ready to roll. Last thing before we fill it is just reattach your overflow tank hose. So I'm gonna add 4 quarts, which is a gallon for those of you that weren't sure. Just into the radiator. I'm gonna turn the car on, turn the heater core on, blast it, and once the thermostat's open up, I'm just going to keep adding it until it tops off. So hopefully we have no leaks. And one other thing that you want to make sure you're doing with this is make sure that the radiator cap is the highest point of the system, so that way the air bubbles can get out. Alright guys, as you can see, the car is on, and I put a gallon in. I'm going to let it warm up a little bit, and I'm going to keep adding it until it's basically full. Alright, so here you can kind of see the new alternator. Looks completely different than the old one. I haven't really cleaned up any of the lines, but that is pretty much it. This right here, exactly where my finger is, that is the lower radiator hose. So what I found best is you unhook it right here, pull it out, and then you just attach it to the other radiator. As far as everything else goes, everything went really smoothly. You can see overflow tank is fine, no leaks, no cracks. You can see where it used to drip on the fan shroud, but everything on it still works great. So if you're wondering what the battery light looks like, it is actually right there. If you ever see that, your alternator is about to go out on you. And then, so if you're wondering when your thermostats open up to let the coolant go through the entire engine, it's when your temperature gauge gets about halfway, and then you'll hear the radiator fans turn on. Alright, so with that being said, that is how you change a radiator on your Toyota Camry. Like I said, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I'm by no means a mechanic. And with that being said, hopefully this video is helpful. If you have any sort of question about anything in the process, go ahead and drop a comment. I'll reply to those as fast as possible. But just like I said, it's not a hard project at all. You know, you could pay someone probably $450, probably at least $450 to do it, or you could do it yourself for like $100. So it's kind of like up to you. But with that being said, thank you for watching this video. Take care and have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.